Welcome to the course Full Stack Web Development. Today we are going to see about basics of full stack. Full stack refers to the end-to-end development of web application, that is development of both the front end and back end of the applications. Before going to see about that is how to develop the application, first we should understand the basic web development framework. The basic web development framework consists of four different components. The first one is user, and the second one is browser, third one is web server, and the fourth one is backend services. So the web development framework mainly consists of these four components, that is user, second one is browser, third one is web server, and the last one is backend services. User is nothing but that is the individuals who access or use the web application through the internet. So the individuals who are going to access or use the particular web application through the internet, so they are referred as the user here. And the second component is browser. So browser is a application software. So this is created by using the bundle of programs, that is already we are having the different types of built-in browsers, for example Google Chrome, Firefox. So here any user can directly interact with the browser, and this will be provide the interface between the user and also the web server. And the third component is web server. So here the web server is a software which receive the request from the web browser and process the request, that which actually handle the request and send back the result to the user through the web browser. So that is the third component. So this is again a software component, and this used to receive the request, that is sent by the user, and process the request, that is handle the request and execute the logic, finally create the output that is sent back to the user. And the last one, that is backend services. While processing the different requests, the web server may need the different data. So this backend services that run behind the web server to providing the different data. For example, now we can detailedly see the components one by one. So here the first component is user. Users are fundamental part of any websites or any web applications. So what is web applications? Web application is nothing but is any applications that we can access via the internet, that is called as web application. So the fundamental part of any web applications are users. So here we are defining the requirement of our application based on the expectations of our user. Normally we are creating the different applications for satisfying the user needs. So here the user needs are expectations converted into the requirements, and we are creating the different applications for satisfying these requirements. So here the expectations also changed day by day. So we need to create the application that adapt to the user need. That is the major part of designing any web applications. So the role of the user is, so they can view the output that is generated by the web server, and also they can provide the input to the browser. So these two are the major roles of user here. Users are fundamental part of any web application. They are actually going to use our applications, and they have two different roles. First one is they can give the inputs through the browser or the UI components, so that we are created for the particular application, and also they can be view the result that is finally generated by the browser. So here the browser that is get the result from the web server, and this will be create the view that can be easily understandable by the user. So here the major thing is user can give the input to the web application, and another one is they can also view the results. The next component of web development framework is browser. So we know that the browser that will be provide the interface between the user and also the web server. So this browser, this will be provides three main roles. First one is it's provide the communication to and from the web server. So this can send the request to the web server, and also this can receive the result from the web server. So this provide the communication to and from the web server. And the second, this interpret the data that is sent by the web server, and also this will be render the result into the view. So normally the web server that will be send the raw information that cannot be easily understandable by the normal user. So the duty or the role of the browser is so that will create the view which can be easily understandable by the user. So that is the second role of browser. And the third role is it handle the user interaction. So here the user interact through the keyboard, mouse, touch screens or any other input devices. The browser should have a mechanism for receiving this input, and also this should handle the particular inputs. So these are the three main roles of browser. So first it provides the communication to and from the web server. It interpret the data that is sent by the server, and it send the or create the view that can understandable by the user, and it provide the result to the user. It also handle the user interactions. So it need to provide the mechanism for accept the user input, and also appropriately handle that particular request. So this may be forward the request to the server. If it is a simple request, so this may be uh, display the dialog box or any other things. Anyway, it should handle the user request. The next component is web server. So the web server is mainly focused to handle the request that is received from the browser. So here the web server that uses the HTTP headers for find outing the actions. So here normally the communications based on the HTTP protocol. So the web server that will be used the HTTP headers for find outing or determining the actions what should take. And here the web server will provide the two different types of output. One is static file, another one is dynamic file. So here the static files that is already generated, that is just forwarded back to the client, and the dynamic files based on the user input, the server will create the dynamic file. So if any situation the server need the additional data, or it want to modify the data that available on the backend services, then the server use the server side scripts. So normally server use the server side programs or script for handling the user input, user request. So using the server side script, so the server will handle the request, and it send back the response to the browser. So here we are using the different types of server side program, for example PHP, JavaScript, Python, Java and so on. So using any one of the server side programs or this programming language, the actual logic is implemented, and that actually handle the server request and send back the result back to the user. So this is the third component. So the major work of this web server is receiving the user request from the web browser, processing that request. So based on the request, this will be generate the output and that output is sent back to the user. If needed, the server also use the backend services. The last component of web development framework is backend services. Backend services are services that run behind the web server and provide the data that is used to build the actual response. So one of the major backend services database, and for using this backend services, the web server use the server side script. So first we need to connect the web server to the database server or any other backend services. So this can be done by using the different server side script. The actual logic is implemented by using the server side script, and using that we can retrieve the information, formatting the information, and we can able to send back the result to the browser. So using this server side script, the web server store the data to the database or any other backend services, modify the data that already stored in the database, and also retrieve the data so that is available on the database. This diagram shows the various component of web application development framework. So the first component is user, second one is server, third browser, and also the backend services. So the user is any user so that interact with the web applications. So browser, so here also we are having built-in browsers, and here actually we are implementing the front end. So the front end of your web applications that runs on the browser, and the back end of the web applications that runs or implemented on the web server. So in generally in the web application we are having the two different parts. One is front end and another one is back end, and we are implementing the front end in the browser and backend in the server. And front end is implemented by using different client side programming languages, for example HTML, CSS, JavaScript. And this backend is implemented by using the different server side languages, that is PHP, Java, .NET, C++, and also the JavaScript. So whenever user sends the request through the browser, so this client side scripts or the front end receive the request and it send the request to the server. So here the server side script or the backend of our web applications process the request, and while processing the request, if it needed any backend services, it utilize the backend services, and finally this will be generate the response, and that response is sent back to the browser. Now the browser send the actual result to the user. So this is actually the overview of any web application framework.